Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We're doing another classic album song ranking here with Sam St. John, my usual partner. Today's The Band, the Brown album from 1969, self-titled. Classic album. We're going to go through that roots rock, Americana. We're here with our special guest, JT from JT's Record Room, Reno, Nevada. Thrilled to have him with us. He's a big fan of the band. Of course, he grew up when they were taking off all the way, and he knows their history as well as anybody. Not a big fan of Robbie Robertson per se, but the other guys in the band.
Oh no, I
I'm
like
kidding.
them.
I jest.
I know.
Anyway, a band we really we did a top 10 on them. Or was it a top 10? Yeah.
Yeah, it was me, you, and Glenn.
Me, you, and Glenn did a top 10 a ways back, and with our new series, we want to get into this. Considered a classic album. I think it's their best album. A lot of people will say Music from Big Pink, but I'm going with the Brown album. JT has it held up there. There's the 5 band members. There's 4 Canadians and one guy from Arkansas.
One guy from Arkansas. That would be
Levon Hill.
Yep.
And the thing about the band is they have 3 true lead singers in the band, which is very unique to have 3 guys capable of belting out tunes, or just being the lead guy, and they alternate depending on the song. Robbie Robertson's the main writer. There's the band in the studio working things out. Of course, they go back to the Ronnie Hawkins days when they were the Hawks. They played with Dylan when he went electric and got booed off the stage. There's a lot of history there, eventually culminating with The Last Waltz, which is a landmark film directed by Martin Scorsese. Just an incredible history. What can I say? When did you guys become lovers of the band? JT, let me start with you. What was your...
Oh, I always talk about my age. I'd say about 1970.
Okay.
When I was 13. I mean,
yeah.
The Music for Big Pink album was laying around. My sister's older boyfriend had that one. Michelle, if I was 12 or 13, she's 3 years older. So as a 13-year-old, she was 16, and Ed was 17. So a lot of my most memorable records were his or my sister's. So that was laying around. And then the Brown album, actually, I think it was around 1971 when I was 14. Is when we really listened to it. But one thing I want to say about this album, it's taken me years and decades to really understand the depth and intricacies of each one of these songs. And one disclaimer, it's hard for me to rank this album at all.
Yeah.
Any of the songs, because they have their nuances and they're so deep that it's tough, but I did it. I ranked them. So
we appreciate that, because I know, ranking is really not the thing you're into. You like to take it as a whole, which a lot of people do. A lot of true music lovers don't like to break them down, but that's the project we're doing. How about you, Sam? When did you first catch on to the band and research them and go back and delve into their catalog?
It's funny because the band, we were talking before, and I've mentioned this on other video. I think I mentioned it on the video we did probably close to a year ago with top 10, is that I don't own much of the band's catalog. I mean, I own one true studio album, which is Cahoots, and then I own a couple other live albums. I own their album that they did with Dylan, Planet Waves, and their greatest hits. And I was given their greatest hits, I would say probably from my dad when I was around 16, maybe 17. So it's 10 or 11 years ago for me. And I didn't fully catch on to them when I first heard them, because I think it was kind of similar to me with John Prine, where you would have like the opening track on the greatest hits was The Wait, which has this acoustic opening, and then they go into something funky like Up on Cripple Creek, or a song from here like that, and then they go into something like Tears of Rage. For me, like listening to it, because there were so many different singers and everything, and I think at the young age it wasn't consistent enough in terms of like the type of music. for me to get into it. And again, I was just slowly getting into music at about 15, 16 years old. But I think it was seeing The Last Waltz
Oh yeah.
on TV.
That was it.
And really getting that. I mean, it just completely different. They're one of those bands where their studio stuff is just the document, but they really shined on stage. I mean, to see them switch places, I mean, you would have Levon move from the drums to the mandolin, Rick would go from bass to fiddle, Richard would go from piano to drums. Garth is pulling every horn and accordion out on top of the organ that he's. I mean, they're just insane. To me, they're the truest definition of a band. I mean, they really are. With the exception of Robbie, who was the songwriter and the really killer lead guitarist. The other four guys they were a band. I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, yeah, the Beatles. I mean, you have Ringo. I mean, excuse me, like Paul could play some drums, but they were kind of clunky. Lennon would pull out maybe some small bass lines or something, but the band, they were great at everything that they touched. I mean, different bands have their specialties, but the band, you can't categorize them. And that's kind of when I started to realize, like, okay, they're really great. So I guess I'll say, like, they're my favorite band that I don't own a lot of their music. So
you will eventually, you will get down the road, acquire these.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yep.
And it's just for me, like, just seeing like for me, like right now, like I would love to have the like the 2-disc 50th anniversary of the Big Pink and the Brown album, and I go and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to put $25 down right now on that. And it's just one of those things where you're like, yeah, maybe next time. But
how much is the Brown album for the remaster, the 50th?
It's probably about 25, 26.
That's all. I'm getting one.
Yeah, the 2-disc on CD.
I'm all in on that, so definitely.
Yeah, I'm in, because I still have my I still have my green or lime green Capital, but if you're going to listen to them on CD, the bonus tracks for the Brown album on CD are just amazing.
I'm sure
there's wonderful bonus tracks for Stage Fright and the Brown album, even more so than the music from Big Pink for me. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get that Brown album on 50th.
Yeah, I just want to add, I was late to the game on the Brown album and the band in general. It wasn't until 1978 when The Last Waltz came out, the film, that I saw the movie, because I was a film guy and Scorsese's film, and I said, well, let me check it out. I had heard of the band, but I never bought their albums. And that's on me, because I was more into the pop stuff back then. I wasn't really a roots rock guy. So I'm watching The Last Waltz and I'm seeing all these different great artists come out with them, and they're playing alongside, and they're doing their own songs, and they're doing them immaculately. And I said, I have to start getting into the band. So that's when I first got that Best of the Band, that white album that you see with like 12 classics on it. Then I go back and it is. And then I go back and get the music from Big Pink and then the Brown, and the rest is history. So I can't say enough good things about them. There's storytelling that Robbie and the boys do with Scorsese with the microphone in their face. They're talking about meeting Jack Ruby, and they didn't know who he was at the time, and all that stuff when they were in Texas. There's one stripper and a one-armed guy, and he has a way of telling a story that sucks you in. And I'm sure he's like that with his book too, where he can spin a good yarn.
I want to add one thing about the greatness of the band.
Yeah.
Creedence Clearwater, the same deal, but the band is even greater. It's probably our greatest representation of a Canadian American band that we have, equivalent to the Beatles or the Stones, or it just represents, what we are as in the new world, as Americans, as Canadians. And it's so cool that, these Canadian guys hooked up with Levon. Well, they all, they played up in Canada, but the music that they evoked from our past, our history, I'm a proud American, and my family goes back to 1687 Wyeth, Virginia, and in East Tennessee later on. But so proud of it, and what these boys did. I mean, If you didn't know, if you never heard The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down and you want to know about the history of America, just listen to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get into our ranking now. That was our little intro. JT, what we do is we rank these in reverse order, 12 to 1. So you're going to go first, then Sam, then myself.
Okay.
So what do you have at number 12?
So number 12, it was tough, but I had to push Look Out Cleveland as my number 12. And that's one that Levon wrote with Robbie Robertson. And, you know, it's reminiscent of what he did with the Hawks, with Ronnie Hawkins. It's real reminiscent. It's boogie woogie, it's rock and roll. I mean, it's good. I like it. But I have to put it at number 12. And Look Out Cleveland, you might think it's about Cleveland, Ohio, but what you touched on, Rich, how they played a lot in Texas and they played these little bars and stuff when, you know, they were just breaking. It could be Cleveland, Texas that they're speaking of on that song. So that's my number 12.
Cool. Sam?
For me, it's going to be the song Jawbone, which is a Richard and Robbie co-write, which there are a couple of those on this album. And probably the one that I'm least familiar with out of all of the songs. Probably one of the reasons it's lower, but it's definitely not, you know, there's a reason you didn't really hear the song in the live sets as much, and it didn't make a lot of the live recordings. It's interesting because what I read was that part of it was recorded in Levon's bathroom, and you can hear kind of how it's far away from the mic. And once you know that, you're like, oh, well, yeah, you can hear the linoleum tile or whatever it is. And from also another thing is that the time signature is like almost jazz. I think it's 6/4 time signature.
6/4.
And there's, I mean, it switches to several different time signatures, but Levon, it's playing like a jazz man on it. It would be interesting to have seen Levon play with, like, you know, like the Glenn Miller Orchestra or something like that to see what he could have done. I bet you he could have killed it. I mean, because, you know, he loved, you know, like people like Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa and those cats. So it's a good song. It's not a whole lot to it, but I like the I like the vocals. I think him and Levon and Richard are singing harmony on it. So yeah, number 12.
My number 12 is one by Rick Danko here called When You Awake. This is one that just doesn't stick with me for whatever reason. Lyrically, I find it uninteresting, the forgettable melody. Like a half hour after I listen to it, every time, I don't even remember. I have to go back and check it out again. It doesn't register with me, and I don't know why, because I like Danko's voice. He's my favorite voice of the three. But whatever, this song just is filler to me, and that's why I put it at number 12. I don't really have anything deeper to say about that other than it's the one that I like the least. Something about Grandpa's knee, and I is that the one that I'm talking about where he's sitting on Grandpa's knee?
Yeah.
That one doesn't work for me as much. Number 11, what do you have, JT?
Well, When You Awake's my number 11. And no, I like it. Now, wasn't that written by Richard? I think it was written by Richard Manuel. Richard and Robbie.
Richard and Robbie.
Richard and Robbie wrote it, and the vocals, I believe, are Richard. Now, I might be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure.
Danko.
I think it's Rick. Yeah.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, well, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't really matter. But I like the song. And here's the thing with this album, and because I've been listening to it for 50 years, you know, on and off, and sometimes way more on than off, each of these songs, you see the nuances and the time signature changes, and they're so interesting. And these songs will grow on you. The longer you listen to this album, even these that we're ranking 12, 11, and 10, you're going to go, wow, you know, I didn't hear that before. It's pretty amazing. And I have to add this, guys, if you haven't seen this classic albums DVD and you love the band, or you're interested in getting into the band, get this one, because it's very informative, and you're going to get to see the genius of these guys and how they recorded this iconic record.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my,
check
that's,
that out.
yeah.
Definitely.
So that's my number 11, When You Wake. Great song, but I'll put it at 11.
That's interesting, 'cause I've got it quite a bit further down. But my number 11 is Jemima Surrender, which is an interesting, it's a Levon and Robbie co-write. And it's one of those, it's kind of got a lot of double entendre to it. And the lyrics, he says, I'm like, I'll bring over my Fender and play you all night or something like that.
Yeah.
I'll play all night for you. And Levon's actually playing the electric guitar, the rhythm electric guitar on this, with Robbie playing lead. And it was funny because before I looked at the credits on that particular song, when I was listening to it and I could hear the drumming, I'm like, I don't think that's Levon playing drums, just from listening to it. And I was like, well, that's Richard. So, but it's cool because Richard kind of plays drums kind of like Paul McCartney in that they're kind of chunky. He's obviously not trained, and Levon plays, I mean, the way that Levon holds the sticks, it's like a jazz guy, like a big band guy.
Right.
And I think Richard kind of played it like a like almost ape-like, just pound like mallets. But I really like the kick drum on it and everything. That was kind of what threw me. I was like, yeah, that's not Levon, so it's got to be Richard. So not a whole lot more other than kind of suggestive for the time, and it's fun.
It's a good song.
Yeah, it's my number 11.
Yeah, that's the one I have at number 11 too. Jemima Surrender, kind of sexually suggestive lyrics in parts here, kind of burlesque. There's a piano in there by Garth that I like, saxophone as well. And you mentioned Richard Manuel on drums. Jemima Surrender, I'm going to give it to you. It's got the sexual innuendo going on, and there's some bizarre lyrics in there as well that I can't quite comprehend, but that's okay.
Right, I read that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with number 11 for Jemima.
Now I want to switch. I want to put When You Awake further down the list. Anyway, I got to commit here.
Commit.
Yeah, I'll commit.
All right, number 10.
Okay, here goes. So I have Jawbone as my number 10. And I really do like the song. And it's very, very, very underrated. And it swings, it's like a down in the groove kind of feel, to write when it changes, when the change happens and it goes back to that groove. It's like a front porch kind of feel, backyard jam, hillbilly kind of thing on the front porch. And then it swings back to that groove. And Jawbone, and that's Richard Manuel on the vocals, right, Sam? Yeah.
On Jawbone,
yeah.
Yeah, that's Richard singing. And let me see. And Richard wrote it. Richard either wrote it, he wrote it with Robbie. Yep. So that's my number 10. And I do like the song. And that's one where I just feel it's not justified to rank it any which way, because it's a very nice song.
Number 10 for me, it was JT's, I think it was JT's number 12, it's Lookout Cleveland. Again, just kind of echoing some of what he said. I agree with all of what he said, but I also read something interesting that it inspired one of my favorite Elton John songs, which is Take Me to the Pilot.
Right.
Which is cool because around that time, and we kind of failed to mention that when Dylan and the band kind of when they stopped touring and were hanging out, in '67 up in Woodstock, everybody was coming up to visit them. It was, Eric Clapton was hanging out, George Harrison was hanging out. And, of course, Harrison and Dylan went back, a couple of years before that, but all of that made itself, that Clapton and Harrison took it back to England. And then you had guys like Elton John was really a nobody in 1967 and just starting his, getting his chops together, playing in the clubs. And, he's hearing the band stuff and hearing, stuff like All Things Must Pass show up and like that more rootsy, type of music that those guys weren't playing. They were playing psychedelic music, 3 or 4 years prior. So it's cool that the band had that outreach and that they're, a North American group of guys. But I'm trying to see, I think, the only other thing that I kind of made note of was just the boogie woogie piano, and kind of like you said, it kind of takes Levon back to his days in the Hawks, and you have Rick on the lead vocals, and Levon kind of singing like a brief like response to the vocals, kind of in a lower baritone. So yeah, it's cool. I like the boogie woogie, but it was kind of cookie cutter in terms of the music in it, so that's why it's probably so low for me.
Yeah, I have the same song at number 10, Look Out Cleveland, pretty much the same reasons. The boogie woogie, it's definitely got a bluesy, I can see where Take to the Pilot comes from.
Yeah.
Definitely. And this shows off their versatility again with the band. I mean, they can go blues, they can go folk, they can go pure rock and roll.
Funk.
I mean,
Yeah, funky.
Like there's
soul.
a funky song in here as well. They have it all. I like the highlights for me are the drumming by Levon and Rick Danko's bass and vocals on this song. I really like it. The boogie woogie piano, of course, Jerry Lee Lewis style, So it's number 10 for me.
Good one.
Number 9.
Number 9. Oh, it's me, right?
It's
Well, okay, Jemima Surrender. I'll do as my number 9, and yeah, Levon wrote this with Robbie, and there's a lot to be said, on the documentary, the last one. Robbie says, that Levon didn't want to work hard enough to write, and I think that's partially true. He was just too busy being Levon, and they were great arrangers, all these guys, and Robbie had that great work ethic for writing. But I wish Levon at this point would have written more, but it's history. What's done is done.
Yeah.
It's a good song. I think there was more good music to come out of him. And then, after, the band incarnation from the 1980s, Levon was writing a lot more. And yeah, I just love Levon Helm. We all do. We all do. So, and this is a nice song, and you have, and Levon plays guitar on this one, right? Did you already say that? Levon plays guitar.
Yeah.
And,
Rhythm.
oh, you said, and Richard on drums, and then and you did say Richard and Ricky are backing vocals, and Levon singing. So yeah, I like it, but that's my number 9.
Cool. Sam.
All right, this is probably the first hot take of the day. So this is the first one that appeared, at least on my greatest hits of the band. I've got the it came out like in the early 2000s. It's the 4 of them, the 5 of them, but their backs, to the camera. They're on that bench.
Yeah.
So there's like it's a lot more songs. It's like 20 songs on that version versus the White Album that y'all are talking about. But this song never struck that chord with me. And the song is Across the Great Divide, which it was just one of those that I never hummed along to it when I listened to the greatest hits. It was never one that I wanted to listen to again and again. It's cool lyrics. I mean, it's all about kind of second chances in life. And the first verse, I think it's the first verse, is talking about almost killing yourself when you're young, but then kind of saying, no, I know better than that, and trying to get out of another verse is talking about getting out of your town and trying not to make yourself something. And it's a catchy little chorus, across the great divide, just grab your hat and take that ride, get yourself a bride, bring your children down to the riverside. I love Richard's voice in that is so good.
It is.
Absolutely.
Especially in the harmony. He's kind of hitting the higher harmony with Rick. But yeah, it's not one that's ever really been up there for me, but I like it better than the other 3 that I mentioned. So.
I like the horn section in that too. I like that song. It's a little bit.
Garth and John Simon are playing horns on most of the album.
Yeah.
My number 9 is Jawbone. Sam, I think Sam talked about it earlier.
Number 12.
Number 12. Yeah, it's my number 9. It does have that front porch prog kind of thing, because it's weirdly structured in a way. It's unconventional, and it has that part in the middle where it goes, da, 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 da. I mean, I don't know where that comes from in the context of the song. I'm a thief and I dig it. I like the way he sings it too. I'm a thief and I dig it. It's interesting. It's about a thief, inside man, doing time, landing back in the tank. All those phrases are used in the lyrics. It's okay. I put it at number 9. I like the first 8 songs are what I consider the best of the band, and then after that, I had to place these other ones a little bit lower. I don't hate it, but it's not what I'm going to go to when I want to hear the band's best material.
Yeah.
Okay, so what, number 8?
Yes,
Number
sir.
8.
And one thing I want to add about the 4 songs, it sounds like this is filler. To me, I just want to reiterate, to me, having listened to this album for so many years, I'm just rediscovering so much about this, and it's such a good listen from very first needle drop to the last note on this Brown album, that these songs will actually, you'll learn more about them and you'll hear the nuances. So for my number 8, I'm going to choose Across the Great Divide. Now, for me, we're getting into territory where we're getting to the top 8 great songs, and I think we all agree on that. But Across the Great Divide, I love this song, and it's such a great opener for the album, and it's, it's about crossing boundaries too, from Canada to the US, and the divide between men and women, the constant, yin and yang thing, and then the past and present of our lives, and talking about the past like I do all the time, and then living in the present. It's a cool song. And the emotive vocals by Richard, my gosh. So it beckons to the opening. What's the opening for Stage Fright? Is that Stage Fright, or what's the opening? I'm drawing a blank there, but on Stage Fright album, the next album after the Brown album, there's a great opener. And so I think it's just the perfect opener for this Brown album.
Strawberry Wine is the opener.
Yeah. Well, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I love that album as well, Stage Fright.
Yeah.
That'll grow on you.
All these will, yeah.
Yep.
And you're right. When I listened to this 3 or 4 times in the last couple of days, and each time the lesser tracks stood out more.
Yes.
I hear exactly what you're saying. You pick up different things as you go, as you hear them more and more. And the next time I hear it, I might like Jawbone more than some of the songs I have ahead of me. Yeah. That's the thing.
Yeah. Let me just add a little bit. 40 years ago, 45, 35 years ago, I was just listening to Up on Cripple Creek, King Harvest, songs like that, the big ones. And then these other ones just sneak in.
They sneak up on you.
Just grab a hold of you. So anyway.
Absolutely.
All right.
Cool.
What do you got at 8, Sam?
Number 8, real funky song, King Harvest is my number 8.
Ooh.
Again, another quote, one of their greatest hits. Again, that bass is just fantastic.
Oh. Yeah.
And those opening lines where they're kind of singing in unison, but I think it's Levon, Rick, and Richard are all singing that,
that
low, kind of just taking it easy, almost syrupy in the sense that it's slow, like molasses, I guess, more like it.
Yeah.
Just how their vocal inflections are. And it's funny because I've heard this song for years and years and years, and it wasn't until I re-listened to this album for this video that I noticed there's a lot of similarity in this song between Richard's voice and Rick's.
Yes.
I could have easily heard Rick doing this song in the same tone as Richard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. And again, another thing that we kind of failed to mention, and I might just be making this up, but this is kind of almost a whole concept album in the sense that it's, not every song, but a lot of the songs are about the South. They're about poor folks, people down on their luck. And this is another one of those songs about a farmer who quits farming. He joins a union, and there's some historical significance talking about labor unions from the 20s and 30s that this could have been in reference to. But a lot of these other songs that we've mentioned, even Across the Great Divide, it's got that whole Southern drawl to it, which is awesome because, Levon's the only Southerner and everybody else is from, up north. So it's just really cool how Robbie could evoke that Southern feeling, especially, for myself being in Virginia. you know, you can relate a lot to the lyrics, and it's just great. But again, the bass steals the show on this one. So
Yeah, I have it at number 8 as well, and
wow,
pretty much the same reason. The
well,
bass,
3,
man.
Rich.
I know. It's kind of disjointed though. It's strangely arranged, but the band can pull it off because they're bringing in different instruments at different times, and it's a feel kind of song for me. Even though, you know, you mentioned the Farmer and the Union and all that. It's kind of funky. It's soulful. I mean, who has a more soulful voice than Richard Manuel? Probably nobody. For
Nobody.
a Caucasian man to be able to sing like that, it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
He really brings the feeling and emotion and the nuance, to use a JT term. It's true. And again, this shows off their instrumental prowess in a big way. The sum of the band is better than the individual parts. I have to say that when they're playing together, nobody's better. But you take them separately, and
Agreed.
maybe they're not incredible, but they are. But together, those 5 had the magic. And this song really brings it home for me. I hate putting it 8th, but I just like there's 7 songs ahead of it a little bit better for me,
Right.
my taste.
Yeah.
That's all.
So we're going to 7, number
We're going
7.
to 7.
That's my 7, King Harvest.
all right there.
Yeah, and so we're all really close on that one, and it's just so cool. And if you watch this one, you're going to see how Levon, how the band did that driving, churning rhythm. Dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun. I mean, it's very cool. And I mean, just, you know, it evokes times of the Great Depression. And you think it was bad in Philadelphia or the rest of the country. I mean, it was bad. You know, my dad was older, so I have stories. You know, I'm a baby boomer, and, you know, my dad grew up, he lived in a boxcar,
Wow.
you know, right outside of Reno, Nevada. My grandpa worked on trains, and man, you know, it's tough times, lucky to eat, and all of that, but poverty stricken, Farmer, the song, and it's just a great song. And it's one of Richard Manuel's opening vocals is one of the most emotively powerful, gritty vocals I think there is in music. It's just amazing. Yeah, so that's my number 7, King Harvest.
Yeah,
Great one.
cool. Number 7 for me, and I feel like this one's going to be a little bit further down for you folks, because just based on our live stream yesterday, when the song was brought up, y'all both, I can see it struck a chord in both of you, but for me, it's right there in the middle. It's right in that range, and it's the song "Whispering Pines." Beautiful song. Again, it's another Richard and Robbie co-write, and again, it's one of those that I've known for a long time, but it wasn't until, and again, Richard sings it, you know, masterfully, and that high falsetto that he did so often that was just sad sounding in the best way. But musically, I didn't realize it till, again, listening to this album for this video, is that it's got a lot of subtleties similar to A Wider Shade of Pale by Procol Harum in the background. I think just the organ, and, you know, Gary Brooker had that soulful voice as well, being you know, a Caucasian man from the UK. Kind of a similar tone, I would say, but not as sad, not as mournful as Richard. And again, just one of those beautiful ballads that Richard could do so well. Richard was definitely the king of the ballad with the band, but he could get funky too. I mean, like you know, King Harvest, but ballads were where he really shone through, and this is one of his best for sure.
Yeah, I have that one a notch ahead of it, but I see exactly what you're saying. My number 7 is Across the Great Divide, which you had earlier, the opening track. I love Richard Manuel's soulful voice. I wish I could replicate it, but I'm a terrible singer. The horn section comes in. He's leaving a one-horse town. Grab your bride. You mentioned this. Take your children down to the riverside. Feed your man chicken every Sunday. It's such a Southern kind of vibe there. Yeah, I like the way the song's written and performed. What can I say? It's about settling down, maybe growing from maybe running around and free loose and fancy free to actually settling down with somebody. It's got a bouncy melody with the horn section and a New Orleans Bourbon Street feel at one point. I like it a lot. So it's going to be number 7 on a great album. Number 7's not exactly chopped liver, but this is a great album.
Okay, moving on to number 6, right?
Yep, we're in the top half now. Number 6.
You know, I think my list is going to be a little bit different because there's a few songs that I just had to put really high on the 1, 2, 3. But number 6, I got to put Up on Cripple Creek. And you would think it would be higher, and on its own merits, it could be the number 1 or 2. But there's so many strong songs on this album, so I got to put it at 6. And you got Levon with this amazing lead vocal, and Ricky and Richard doing the backing vocal. But what's the real hook of the song is Garth Hudson. Man, with his wah-wahs clavinet and his Lowry organ, just making that, it's like it's my grandma played juice harp in East Tennessee. And that was her instrument. Everybody else played, banjo, guitar, all that, and fiddle. But that's what my grandma did. And I grew up, I heard about that's what her instrument, and he evokes the sound of juice harp so well on that clavinet. Back then, they didn't have a lot of effects. It's just Garth is a genius. So great song. And this is the one that I believe Levon thought would be a big hit, like a number 1 hit, like a, bullet in the top 40 and all that. But just a great song. So that's my 6.
Very good. Number 6 for Sam.
Number 6, y'all both have this really low, and this is the one I mentioned that I had quite a bit higher, and it's the song When You Awake. Again, I love Rick Danko. He's probably my favorite member, I think, as he is yours, Rich.
Yeah, he is.
And JT, yeah, that's right. We all mentioned this yesterday on our stream.
Yeah.
Just because of his presence on loan on stage makes him your favorite. I mean, if you just knew the band for their music and didn't see them on video, Rick might, he might go unnoticed. But when you see him on stage, just like falling into his bass and singing the harmonies and just his eyes closed.
Yeah.
The man could harmonize with, a brick. But I love the song. Again, it's I think it's Richard on the drums again. So you have that kick drum that's a little bit heavier than a trained drummer. So it's like you can tell he's listening for the beat to really come in on it. And I love how it just builds up, and just the lyrics. I mean, it's just one of those things. I love Robbie's kind of got this like finger picking country style guitar kind of in the background. It's not directly in the front, but it's there, and that just makes it really cool too. And again, it's got Rick on it, so I love it. It's one of those that I forget about. It's one of those that the title, I never remember the title, but like I hear it, I'm like, I forget how much I like that song. So it's my number 6.
I think that's the one that's going to grow on me, because like you said, I forget it.
Yeah.
A half hour after I hear it, and then when I play the album in context, I do like it, but it doesn't stick with me. And I want the whole thing to stick with, and maybe one day it will. So I
love it.
Yes,
that was a hard one to put so far back, but
yeah, exactly.
You have to make choices in life, right?
These are tough ones. That's why they hire us to do the dirty work.
Right.
Big bucks.
Heavy lifting.
Heavy lifting. My number 6 is one Sam had a little bit ago, Whispering Pines. I do like it a lot. Really sad song, a heartbreaker, the loneliness in the voice, kind of a haunting ballad, depressing, there's gloom, all those things. And looking for that glimmer of hope where the foghorn and the waves come in and the seagulls cry, all those images that are used in the tune. And it's one of probably the quietest song on the record as well.
Yeah.
I think. And it breaks it up because you got the funky stuff going on and the boogie woogie stuff, and then this comes in. It's fantastic, but number 6 again for me.
Cool. So we're at 5.
We're at 5.
We're getting there. So my number 5 is Rag Mama Rag. Get your skinny little body back home. And Levon with that great vocal, and actually this is the one that Levon really felt that was going to be a big hit. And I don't think Robbie really cared that much, but Levon was very excited about this, singing this great song. He plays mandolin on it, and you got John Simon on tuba,
Yeah.
which is great. You know, John Simon was the perfect producer for this song. And Ricky Danko on the fiddle, man. I mean, what a just fantastic. And again, when you check this out, you're going to see Ricky Danko, many years later, replicating his fiddle part. And it's just great. And he's interviewed, and I think this is from the 90s, if I'm not mistaken, about the late 90s. But yeah, Rag Mama Rag, man, that was such a great radio song. And that's where we heard it a lot, right, Rich, on the radio?
That's where I heard it. Yep.
Yeah. Good song.
I love how the way Rick holds a fiddle. He puts it like right here and plays it.
Old-timey style.
He's watching, he's looking at the top of it, and it's scratch fiddle.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, number 5. Number 5 for me is Up on Cripple Creek. Again, a huge hit. I mean, it's one of those funky songs. JT just mentioned it with the clavinet and the wah wah. That is the hook, and that's a good way to put it. I didn't really think of it as that way, but the way you said that, it's true. I love the whole, like she dips my donut in I dip my donut in her tea. What does that fully mean?
That's my favorite line too. I have that
windows.
It's awesome.
Yeah, the way he says it, and kind of with a smile, and he's like, I love to hear, it's just a great vocal from Levon. And I don't have a whole lot to say about it. It's just, again, one of those that I love to hear it on the live releases and how they do it live. So
yeah. My number 5 is the same as JT's, Rag Mama Rag. The great vocal here by Levon again.
All right.
You mentioned the fiddle. I can still picture Rick Danko playing that fiddle in the last waltz. I think it was on The Wait where he's playing the fiddle with the Staple Singers. Is he not? Because they're all changing. Or
Evangeline.
That's where it is. It's Evangeline, yeah. But getting back to this song, Rag Mama Rag, I like the dog eat dog and cat eat mouse. Rag Mama Rag all over my house. I mean, just cutesy kind of lyrics. The tuba you guys mentioned. Killer Piano by Garth Hudson. Garth Hudson's like the Swiss Army knife, the secret weapon. He comes in and plays whatever it takes. He's the least known of the 5 band members, but he might be the most important when it comes right down to it, because he's giving that extra little push that the song needs, whatever they want to put in the background or to bring the song to a full crescendo. That there's Garth Hudson. So I love Rag Mama Rag. It was all over the radio. That's where I heard it. And Levon's got the perfect song, again, as he does in a lot of his songs. Up on Cripple Creek and The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. His voice fits the lyrics of what they're writing and talking about. So
absolutely. All right. So number 4, this is a song I just absolutely love. I mean, Rockin' Chair is my number 4. And Oh, to Be Home Again down in Old Virginia, right, Sam?
That's right.
Oh man, I just love that line, and it's such a great song. And Richard Manuel's vocals on this are just so sorrowful and emotive and emotional and beautiful and sad and strong and powerful. And then you got Ricky and Levon back in vocals, answer and call back and forth. And man, down in Old Virginia with my very best friend, man, just I love Rockin' Chair. And this is a song this was a sleeper for me. And back in the 80s, I think I really discovered how much I love this song. So that, yeah, number 4 for me, Rockin' Chair. Robbie Robertson, of course, wrote that one.
Yeah.
Now I'll continue along with that because it's my number 4 as well. So it's our first match. But yeah, just again, the whole line about Virginia, obviously that's going to stick with me, being a lifelong Old Dominioner, if you will.
All right.
but there's another line. I mean, it's just sad. The whole song just it's sad, but it's not sad. It's about, you know, it's nostalgic, and it's about, you know, thinking back to going to better places, and that whole line about would have been nice to just to see the folks listen once again to them stale old jokes. That
Yeah.
big rocking chair won't go nowhere. I love, you know, listening to the stale jokes, because that reminds me, I had a couple of neighbors, married couple that lived behind me for years, and they were, you know, they were my grandparents essentially. I mean, they were like grandparents. I love my grandparents, but they were like my grandparents. I lived right behind my house, and you know, just going over to their place, sitting outside under the apple tree with fold out lawn chairs, you know, and I was, you know, 12 years old, and hearing, you know, the same stories and everything, but it takes me back to, like, you know, summer nights, long, you know, the sunlight's out for a long time, and just the whole thing. It's just got that great piece of imagery in the whole song, and Richard's voice is beautiful. So, and then not to, you know, cut away Levon. Levon's playing some really good mandolin on it. So, rocking chair is number 4.
All right.
Guess what? It's number 4 for me. So we all hit that.
All
How
right.
about that? Yeah, this is one of those count your blessings songs for me, where you're at a point in your life where you're just looking for that space and quiet and breathing in the air and kicking back. You know, he talks about, I can't wait to sniff that air, or dip that snuff. I won't have a care. You know, you can see him in that rocking chair, just chilling. He spent his life at sea. He's now back at home in old Virginia, living his life in that rocking chair with his best friend. What, old Willie, was it?
Ragtime Willie.
Ragtime Willie.
73 years old. You know, it's a classic folk song. I like the mandolin too. I think there's an accordion I have written down here as well. Just a great emotional song for me. Harmonizing, it's sad, but a lot of feeling in it. And Richard Manuel, he's the one that brings the feeling, you know.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah.
So that's cool that we all had that at number 4.
Yep. So number 3, huh? So
Yes.
that would be for me, Whispering Pines. I had to put it up really, really high. And Richard Manuel and Robbie wrote that. And, you know, Richard's vocal on this, I mean, he's reaching for like a place vocally that's just, I mean, it's unprotected. It's unguarded. It's just with the amount of heart. I mean, it's broken. Empathy, man, it's just, again, and you know, I love Ricky Danko, but Richard, man, is like, for me, he's right behind. And such a sad story. He was born April 3rd. He passed away when he was 43, and he died a day after his 43rd birthday.
Jesus.
And you know, a lot of he was a very complex and shy guy, and just so ultra talented. It just oh man, it just breaks my heart to think about it. I love him as a musician and singer. And Levon Helm joins in the very last refrain of Whispering Pines, and it's so beautiful. And what really makes the song, again, we haven't said enough about Garth Hudson. You know, he came up with that that keyboard part that like nobody could do it like Garth. So yeah, that's it. Number 3 for me, Whispering Pines.
Very good.
Number 3 for me is going to be Rag Mama Rag. Again, it was just mentioned, again, one of those killer vocals by Levon Helm. The fiddle, again, that's kind of the hook of that song for me, just between the verses. And like JT said, that documentary, it's really cool to see Rick, you know, in his 50s do that, because I think the a lot of the footage they used for that documentary, Rick had just recently passed, I think, and so it was archival, but it wasn't that archive. Like it was fairly recent, and so it's just neat. Again, it goes back to that whole, you know, they were a band and they could pull out so many little neat things that other bands couldn't do. I mean, you know, some of the closest maybe like John Entwistle of the Who, you know, playing out like horns and things with the Who and overdubbing horn sections, but the band could bring it as, the five of them all night. You could keep somebody on the keys and have Garth come out and play a sax solo, and Richard hold down the fort on the ivories. But it's just great song. I'm gonna rag mama rag all over your house. It's just so good. And Levon was singing it up until he couldn't sing it anymore with his throat cancer, and even then they still played it, and he just backed singers up on the drums. So just a great song. It's one of Levon's signature vocal tunes. So it's my number 3.
Beautiful.
My number 3 is one you guys both mentioned, Up on Cripple Creek, Levon Helm on the lead vocal. Basically about a trucker stopping along his route to see his little Bessie girl in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Catchy chorus. I like the donut and the tea, and he goes, hee hee, up on Crip. He has that little laugh. There's a yodeling in there, yodeling, all that stuff. This is Americana at its finest, with a pop undertone to it, because it was a semi-hit. Clavinet, the wah-wah. I like if I spring a leak, she mends me. I don't have to speak, she defends me. A drunkard's dream, if I ever did see one. Right. Exactly. It's just great songwriting. Love everything about it. And it actually was number 2 for a long time, until the last few days, and I moved a song ahead of it for me, which we'll find out next.
We all have the same 2.
Yeah, I
We
think
all have the
it's gotta
same
be
1 and 2. Yeah.
We got to have the same number 2. Unfaithful Servant for my number 2, Rick Danko. And what's interesting about this, John Simon, they did 30 to 40 takes of Ricky's vocal for Unfaithful Servant, and they came at the final cut. They realized that Rick's the very first take was the one. And I got to tell you, I played in my second band. They're both good bands, but the second band, often our first takes were the best, and it's funny that way. But this is the band, and one of the greatest bands in the land. So Unfaithful Servant, Robbie, again, stellar songwriting. And he wrote this in Hawaii. Him and John Simon were over in Hawaii when he wrote this. And Rick Danko's vocals, it's a bashfulness kind of, shy, he has that shy thing going on, and regret, and then just with this deep down power that comes out of Rick Danko with he just shudders. He just shudders. And like Sam touched on, when he plays bass, he's got his arm going, and is singing, and he just like whips into one of the best bass players in popular music. So amazing. So yeah, my number 2, Unfaithful Servant.
Great choice. What do you have, Sam?
Well, for me, it's the other song. It's The Night They Dribbled Dixie Down. Hey, it's top 2. Come on.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
that's cool. I like it.
Yeah. So spoiler for Rich there.
I was surprised. That's all.
Oh yeah. Well, again, it's one of those. Being from the South, there's a lot of truth in it. There's obviously some things that were historically inaccurate in the song. I think the whole line about Stoneman's Cavalry.
Yeah.
It was really it wasn't Stonewall, but it was another general.
George Stoneman. I was a Civil War buff when I was a kid, and he was a major general.
Yeah.
He just pillaged. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, but because my dad, he's a big Civil War guy too, and I think like in terms of like the timeline, after Richmond fell, Stoneman wasn't there. Well, anyway,
that's right. That's exactly right.
As a story, it's beautiful. Robert E. Lee, obviously he's from Virginia, so he's well known here, good and the bad. But as a song, it's beautiful, and for me, I always wish that the song started the way that it does at the last waltz, where they play Dixie really slow on the horn with Alan Toussaint and his orchestra playing the horn section, and then it goes to that piano and the boom, ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum,
yeah,
and then just that whole line about you can't raise a Cain back up when he's in defeat, and you can tell. I know Robbie's talked about this. I know he talked about it in the documentary. talks about it in his book. He says he wrote that song for Levon, and he didn't realize till he went down south and visited Levon's people in Arkansas just how raw still the Civil War was for people down south. Because I mean, you figure at that point they were hanging out in the 60s playing their bar band with, you know, Ronnie Hawkins, and the Civil War was only 100 years prior.
That's
to
right.
when they were, to when actually it was less than 100 years, some of it, for when they started hanging out. So, you know, some of those people that were like the old folks still remembered some of it, or they had parents that
Their
followed them.
grandparents.
Yeah, so Levon had that aching because he, you know, though of course the Civil War ended, not to get, you know, into all that, but the Civil War ended for the best the way that it ended, there was still that hurt and like that rebuilding that was still there. And, you know, there were a lot of Southern towns still that, you know, are just desolate. They might have been booming towns for a while, but they just kind of faded away and that sort of thing. And the remnants are still there. So all in all, I mean, it's a beautiful vocal by Levon, and hearing Rick hit that high harmony, and, you know, the children were singing part, you know, it's a perfect song. And the next song is perfect too. So I just had to flip a coin, and that's
Good
what this
call.
one landed.
I was going to flip flop them too, as Unfaithful was going to be my number one.
Yeah.
Was going
Yeah.
to be.
Unfaithful is the one for me that was a little further down, and it worked its way up because I've been playing it a lot lately, preparing for this. So it's now number 2. Unfaithful Servant, Rick Danko again, killing it with you mentioned bashfulness, and that's exactly what it is. It's a shyness. Yeah, it's filled with anguish, regret. You can feel the pain and the shame in the voice, all those emotions. And Rick is one of the best at conveying those bottled up emotions that we all tend to keep inside. He's putting them out there, and through his music.
Absolutely.
And that's why it hits home with me, because a lot of us tend to feel that way, and we're not able to enunciate or verbalize some certain feelings. And he puts them out there, and you can feel them in the way his voice is. It's beautiful, really. And, you know, paying the price for mistakes made in the past. And he says here, I take it like a grain of salt. It's all I can do. It's no one's fault. You know, it's just, and the pain that he's singing with. I love it. It's number 2 for me. Close call, but the other song has been with me longer. That's why it's number 1.
Yeah, so on to number 1, huh?
Yes.
Well, The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down is one of the greatest songs that's ever been written. I mean, really, you know, and Levon's vocals, and I get emotional when I just hear the name. I mean, I'm going to start busting out crying, bawling, man. I'm telling you, it evokes a lot of emotion. And when I found out 10 years ago that my great-great-grandfather was 1st Tennessee Infantry Drummer Corps, you know, with the bullets flying, I mean, I thought about this song, you know.
Yeah.
So it just has so much power, and you know that and it's really about family. You know, if you read, you know, people criticizing what it might be saying about the South, this and blah 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 blah, you know, I completely disagree, because it's you know, the Civil War, our American Civil War, tore up so many families.
Yeah.
And so it's really about the Kane family, right? Man, I gotta quit, because it just for me, it had to be number 1. I get emotional every time I hear the song.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
agree.
Definitely, like I said, one of the highlights of the Last Waltz, that whole,
Yeah.
that's kind of like that moment for the band. I mean, not with their guests and everything, but the band's moment. That's it right there.
It is.
Yeah, it's great. And yeah, everybody down here knows somebody that, you know, there's Civil War affiliations everywhere. I mean,
Everywhere.
I had great grandfathers on both sides, you know, fighting for the Confederacy, and one of them was at, you know, Pickett's Charge, and there's just a lot of history, and we could go into that some other
Yes.
time. But anyway, Number one for me, it was y'all's number two. It's Unfaithful Servant. Again, I actually kind of surprised myself that this made number one. Again, I was like, oh, Dixie is going to be it. Because usually the way I start these lists is I'll just go ahead and write down the track listing as is on a piece of paper and then kind of play with it from that point. And I saw Dixie, I was like, oh, there's number one. But then listening to it, kind of like Rich said, Rich had it way lower than number two. And just again, one of those beautiful stories. It's almost like a Tennessee Williams story or something like that, where it's a servant who did something to the lady of the house. We don't know what it is. We don't know if there was a relationship, and we don't know if there was, if he's stealing, whatever it was. Just interesting, and like you were saying, Rick is kind of playing this character of, he's ashamed for what he did, but he knows that he's at fault. Again, you have the horn section of Garth and John Simon, which is again a common theme all over this album. And it was interesting when JT showed the back of the record that they actually credit John Simon on the back, almost like an unofficial member of the band, kind of like the Beatles did with Preston on their last couple of recordings.
Yeah.
And yeah, just again, it was the first take that was the Golden Boy, which is crazy. I mean, you hear so much of that. I mean, tons of famous songs that that you don't think of have first takes as the final cut. And something else that I learned too from just reading up on these songs is that this is Elvis Costello's all-time favorite song. He mentions that in his autobiography.
Well, he writes like that. Elvis writes like in this style of this songwriting.
Yeah, and I mean, Elvis is another one of those guys that had so many genres. I mean, he's played, orchestral, he's played power pop, he's played country. So just like the band, he doesn't, hone himself in as, a punk rocker. He does his other stuff too. And just again, Rick is the star of this one, and again, just another reason why I love him so much, and how I wish he was still here, singing and as an older man. But just a beautiful song. I love it. Love the whole story. So it's number one.
All right.
I like it. And my number one is The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. I mean, to me, it had to be number one for me, being that I've known the song for a long time. Forget the Joan Baez version. The band, this is the authentic version right here.
Right.
Levon Helm, the voice. If there was ever a voice that fit a song, this is the one. You can feel the first person account. You really believe he was there, and recounting what happened, the descriptive imagery, the things he saw, the people he came across. There goes Robert E. Lee. I mean, it's so authentic. That's the thing.
Well, look at the cover of the album. They look like Civil War.
Yeah, they look like they just walked away from it.
Civil War era dudes.
Covered in the rain. Yeah.
You feel the pain, the suffering, the starving, all that stuff that comes into play with a brutal war within one's country like that. I mean, how did we ever survive that war? The aftermath, the reconstruction, everything that went with it. But I guess it showed the strength of the people, that we weren't going to give in to what it was about or whatever. I mean, it's amazing how many people died. And
well, the South was devastated. That's
devastated, just leveled. I mean, even Tom Petty uses that word. They left our cities leveled.
And what Sherman did was even worse. I mean, it just General Sherman. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So
we had the top two, just a little bit different, but you can't argue with either choice. So they're both killer songs and
perfect songs,
landmark stuff. So now what we like to do is give the album an overall ranking. Like I said, 10 being an absolute unequivocal masterpiece, 1 being garbage, and 5 being strictly mediocre, middle of the road. Come see, come saw. So what do you give it, JT?
I get to go first. I give it a 10 plus.
A 10, just straight out of the.
Oh, it has to be a 10. It can't be a 10 plus.
No, well, a 10's good.
Oh, 10's good. Okay, it's
That's
a 10.
It's a 10. How about you?
Yeah, it's a 10.
Sam.
For me, Rich got on me the other week. We were with Randy. 2 weeks ago, we did Moondance, and I gave it a score, and I said I've got very specific specifications. Essentially, like my top 2 favorite albums of all time are going to be 10s, and nothing else is going to get a 10. So for me, it's an 8.
That's
Just
okay.
just because again, those 3 songs that I have is 12, 11, 10, or that's 3 songs of filler on that's a fourth of the album. So
Right.
I'm going 8.5. I'm giving it right between an 8, which is great, solid, to 9, which is excellent. I think it's right in between. I could go 9, but it has a couple songs there that are just a little bit of a misfire for me. But when you listen to it in context, you think you're listening to a 10 because it does work as a unit. But when you're breaking the songs up,
Okay,
Yeah.
I have a question. Sam, what are 2 of your 10s?
here,
well, they will show up in later
Okay.
later rankings.
I know
All
what
right.
they are, but I don't want to give them away because
I'll watch the videos then.
we're going to do those videos at some point.
Okay.
Well,
right.
I'll say one. I mean, because we did our Beatles ranking. One of them's Abbey Road.
Okay.
10.
That's
Yeah.
a good 10.
So
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually missed on. I thought it was going to be Blood on the Tracks was a 10 for you. I didn't.
no. But yes, that too. I guess I will say in my top 5 favorite albums. I'll say
So that's going to be close.
There you go. Yeah.
Huh.
And the other one is a Landmark album, which I won't get into. We'll get to that eventually. I don't know who we're going to ask to do that, but
Nobody wants to rank Taylor Swift. I don't know.
Taylor who?
Yeah. Right.
Anyway, we want
This
to
is
thank
cool.
JT's Record Room for coming in and doing this with us. It was a lot of fun. Subscribe to his channel. I'll have the link below in the description. Everybody knows JT went over 1,000. I don't know what you're at now, but I know you're past 1,000. You're running a contest as well.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm at. I just appreciate the vinyl community. And, I wasn't even sure I'd stick around this long. And I love it. And the camaraderie, that's the big thing. And
That's the
I
best
don't
thing.
know. I mean, to anybody who's subscribed, when I subscribe to channels, I never take that away. I keep, I subscribe to about 500 or 600 channels. So my contest deadline is on the 28th, I guess in 2 days.
Okay.
I'd have to say 12 midnight on the 28th. And then I'll have 2 days to be able to, a couple guys just did entries today and they were really fun videos. So like Goes 69 from Brazil posted one and it was really good. And man, it's just heartwarming. I mean, this is just, we have probably one of the best communities on the planet. It's just, this is special.
Everybody supports each other. And that's why Sam and I like doing the collaborations. We get to meet great people and exchange ideas and it's fantastic. So that's why we're doing this series, bringing in people that specialize in certain styles or genres like you with the band. And we hope to continue the series. So subscribe to JT, subscribe to Sam St. John. We'll be back next week with another video. So for everybody out there, thank you very much for watching. Appreciate it. Take care, and we'll see you next time.